Good morning, good afternoon, dear viewers, friends, and colleagues. Welcome to Innovative Sustainability channel. Hope you enjoyed the videos that were recorded so far with many people from pharmaceuticals, from food from manufacturing, from the healthcare, and also from educational sector. So I would like to thank all the speakers who joined me so far and contributed to the channel, contributed also to the topic, which is very broad. It has many aspects. And today, I would like to basically talk about more about sustainability as a concept, as a history, where it's coming from, how it shaped up, what are governing principles or the goals that basically developed and put in front of all of us to contribute in many different ways, starting from our work life, personal life. We all, live on this planet, and basically, one way or the other, we participate in these actions. So, before further ado, I have a brief um, PowerPoint presentation. And the purpose of this presentation is to, again, as to give framework for the channel, but also to go through the aspects in a little bit more details. So for those of you who are new to this topic, perhaps that would be introductory video. For those of you who are very familiar with it or familiar in some ways, perhaps like a refresher. So let's begin. So from the start, I will share the presentation, and that would be on the sustainability. Just let me second. Okay, so here it is. And I'll move the bar a little bit up. Yes, just like that. So as it says, basically it's understanding sustainability, principles, practices, and a global importance. So what is the sustainability? How is defined? What was the history of it? Where this term came from? Apparently, there is an evolution of the concept of sustainability, and it started quite a while ago. In 1713, it started as a forestry. So, obviously, people used forest for many years as a timber for construction, for furniture purposes. Basically, in all human activities, wood was a very important resource and still is in many places to sustain life. So basically, yeah, you know, societies started to notice that depletion of the forest is causing has significant effect. So in 1713, the principles or origins of forestry were framed as the principles to sustain timber yields across generations. So that occurred already to people in 18th century. It was further developed with the UN in 1972 and was captured as a early global recognition at the conference elevated environment to global policy attention. So aspects of environment, impact on environment, and the fact that, environment is all what surrounds us and it's our planet itself. So basically, the importance of that was highlighted for the first time to the global view. Later on, in 1987, it was defined further as the for humanity to fulfill their needs without harming the future generations. So basically, preserving the planet or making an effort, in fact, to preserve the planet for future generations without harming their access to resources, their ability to function, and their sustainability. And then from goals to metrics. So in the year 2000, it was converted, this policies converted into the specific goals that could be measured. And so here you see MDG. So basically it's metrics, development goals. And so measurable development goals. So those are global targets to measure, to use like we have, in many organizations and companies, so-called KPIs. When, if you perform, what is the achievement, like what is the percentage of achievement and what impact it has. So basically, to put some parameters that the deliverables could be measured. It was further converted into the Sustainability Development Goals, and they were framed in 2015. And on the next slide, I will read. Actually, I have 2 slides on that. It's a 17 altogether goals that all very difficult to achieve, all require cooperation between people, between societies, between organizations, and most importantly, between countries to achieve basically all those targets goals could be possible only through global cooperation. And maybe that's the reason that UN is highlighting that. And also in 2015, the shift went from just the environment, but also to people's well-being, to the planet, because it's our home. That's the only place we can live, at least for now, and the prosperity. And what is prosperity? Is the opportunities. This is the healthy life. This is well-being. This is opportunity for getting education, for getting jobs, for contributing to society, basically to fulfill basic human needs, and more importantly, to have fulfillment of more higher human needs, such as self-development and achievements. So without further ado, we go to the principles. The way they're written, they may be very succinct, as you can see, no poverty, and poverty in all forms everywhere. Very succinct formula, but it means a lot. It means a lot of work. And basically, you see that each point that there is coming next is contributing to that very point. So if we go next, it's zero hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, promote sustainable agriculture. Each topic is very big. Food security, I think it's on people's mind. It's on government's agenda in many countries, especially during COVID and after COVID era, which we're living now. The fact that logistics was affected, the production was affected. Each country started to think about food security, to sustain the living, to get access to food for their citizens, for the people who populate the countries, to to have free access, to have sufficient for them to be fulfilled. So improving nutrition, that's a conversation about the quality of food and also access to food. And then promote sustainable agriculture. It's basically constant balance between what we want to grow, to collect harvest, to have enough of crops, enough of vegetables, enough of fruits, but at the same time, not to exhaust the land. Because every time, the fertilizers are used, there is a certain time when the land needs to rest and the soil needs to rest before you can proceed further. So sustainable agriculture has many meanings, which I mentioned only one of them that comes to mind that I'm familiar with. But it's much more than that. It's also sustainable means you can preserve it, it's robust, it works, it has proper logistics, proper food processing plants. It's a lot of infrastructure that comes with a concept of agriculture, sustainable agriculture. Next goes good health and well-being. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages, meaning that we need to live healthy life at all ages. So opportunity to be active, accessibility to be active. Like you see now in many places we have gym. Basically, it's everywhere. It's in the buildings, it's in condominiums, in private, even in private houses. It always has health and recreation centers. You can see it everywhere. Why? To promote opportunity for movement, for exercise, to remain healthy. But also, good health, very often, it's a blessing. It's what people born to. But to sustain good health, of course, you need many more things to ensure that, person works in good conditions. And, the points that go further, they all support each other. You'll see that all these points that I'm reading so far, and I continue, the sustainable development goals, they all interlink. None of them, one can exist without another. It's just, the point is to capture and to highlight the importance of each. But at the same time, if you go like basically a little bit beneath the meaning, you will see that they all connected to each other, and one cannot be achieved without achieving another one. So next one is quality education. So provide inclusive, equitable, and life learning opportunities. So if you have lifelong learning opportunities, it's your chance to sustain yourself in workforce, but also sustain yourself as self-fulfilled individual when you can be useful for society, be useful for your family, be actually useful for yourself, first of all, to fulfill your needs, but also have self-respect. And learning opportunities give you that essence. Because with ever-changing world, when some occupations appear and then disappear, and then people who have them, they wonder what to do next. So the lifelong opportunities gives the chance to get another education or get training or get sufficient, to get a license for something so that they can remain in workforce or start their own business to that matter and continue to be strong, self-sufficient, independent member of society who can, again, support their family and support the community at large. Then inclusive and equitable, same thing. It's, for people of all ages and all walks of life, so to speak. Be inclusive, so give opportunity to get education. Gender equality. Here we have achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. And living in Toronto for so many years, I was going from work to home using subway, and the most, I would say, the slogan of the image that made huge impression on me was the picture of a girl. She's about 8 years old, pictured on that, and she stands, in her village in front of her house, and basically was written, educate the girl and she will feed the family. And it was very profound, just one sentence, but huge impact. And you're thinking of even now kind of brings you to tears. Why? Because you're giving a chance to this flower to grow, to reap the fruit, to start feeding somebody else. So feed the girl, educate the girl, and she will feed the family. Meaning that if you take at least one member of society, educate them, give them the chance for education, they will find a job, they will find some means to get, to the resources and support their family. And not just feed their family, but support their family, because support also means that other members of the family can get their education and start to flourish, to move away from what we say, no poverty, zero hunger, and so forth, maintain good health, maintain well-being. And it's all basically ends up as well-being. So clean water and sanitation. Clean water is the sources of water, but also it's the water purification system. It's just two words, but actually there's a lot of infrastructure if you think about it. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of government support, and also companies who work on in this field, maybe private companies that support that. And when you think clean water, you may think Switzerland with beautiful rivers and lakes. You may think Canada, the country that's blessed with clean water. And at the same time, you look at the other countries, for example, like United Arab Emirates, you have only access to salty water from the Gulf. However, the plants are made in several places to desalinate and to move, to produce the fresh water that can be accessible for people. And in fact, what they do, they reuse water 4 times. So I don't remember what the second one is used for, but the third cycle is used for the fountains. And then the fourth is used to water the plants. So realistically, it's very, how to say, economical, but also a very innovative approach to reuse water to the max so that you have supply. Even in a country when you think, oh, it's desert and it must be very hard, it is true. It's hard because there are very few places where you see the sources of water, the natural sources of water. But at the same time, there is technology that comes into play, there is industry that comes into play, innovation, of course, support for such companies to be built and flourish. But they produce, and that gives and in many countries where no access to water, this type of plants can be path forward and savior for people um, to ensure they have clean water access. Sanitation is another part, is what you do with waste, with water purification systems and so forth. And again, your example comes picture, because that's where, recycling of the water to the max and reusing it for different purposes becomes a key. But also sustainable management of water and sanitation. So it's throughout the system. It's what goes into the, back in the environment. So there are different topics that basically captured again in a very, very short sentence. It's water purification systems, it's sewage, it's removal of waste management, and so forth. And the next goal is affordable and clean energy. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. So here, we're talking about energy that is, maybe pricey, but with a price that can be affordable by people and also by industry. Why? Because that is direct effect of cost of goods, and that is providing sustainability for the modern economy, for basically current economy, and also for people, because with energy starts everything. We know that it's even today's broadcast. It's all depending on energy that feeds the computer, and also the internet that I'm using to talk to you today, and you use also to perhaps viewing this video today. But beyond that, of course, clean energy also means different sources. So, to step away from fossils where we can, to introduce different sources of energy, and such of them, like, for example, geothermal energy. We really, consider that because not all countries have this access, but some countries do. And for example, Iceland is one of the countries that is using the like geothermal sources for heating. And there are many places like that, but probably more development in that field would be great, because that's it's not just for heating. Some countries don't need heating; they need for something else. So geothermal energy as a source of electricity. So this topic is really big, and it's part of this basically point here about clean energy. Another aspect is solar energy, and you see in many places on the roofs. I remember in Toronto we had one of the buildings that used solar batteries on the roof, and people were using it for themselves, but also contributing back to the grid. So it's possible. It's in fact achievable. But again, some places you see huge fields populated with solar energy, and depends where they're situated. You may hear back from environmentalists that it's not always very healthy to have them, because of the animals who populate that area, they are affected by them, as well as plants. So, there is always this question about balance, where you put them, how you put them, and what in how many amounts, and so forth. So every technology, they always have the other side when it has impact on the environment, literally everything. Same thing about wind energy, that is often considered as a path forward, but we all know that uh, the how it's constructed and how it's done, it's not very robust, and it goes off quickly if it's very cold weather, and it's very hard to replace it or fix it. But also from environmental perspective, it's affecting birds' life. The many birds are killed. So every technology has both sides, and it definitely has to be thought through and has to be in balance with the environment where it's used and placed. Decent work and economic growth. So here we're talking about sustained promote sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth and productive environment. And here is like many aspects embedded in this. Basically, all what we spoke before, this decent work conditions and economic growth directly supports all the points that we discussed above. And this talks about also human rights. You can see like decent work conditions that are healthy, that respects the parameters of health and safety. It's proper equipment, personal protective equipment. It's the training associated with it. It's engineering barriers or physical barriers that has to be there to protect workers. Or if not possible, there are situations and there are workplaces where you cannot have either of the physical or engineering barriers. Then you basically go by procedures. So procedures have to be trained and on and executed as is. And also, like teamworks that support fulfillment, but also support safety of the individuals. But decent work conditions also means the hours of work and hours of work and lighting conditions, ergonomics, everything really, literally is there. But also morale, with people's relations to each other, how they treat others, how they are treated themselves. All that contributes because a happy employee that feels respected, feels needed in the team, in the group, in the company, organization, whatever he or she works, is basically key because that's for them is the opportunity for development, for professional growth, for self-respect. It's opportunity for earning to support their family. So if let's say employee is happy, then you're getting productive work, you're getting results, you're getting produce, and it becomes productive employment. So you're getting the goods or services from employees, and obviously you're getting you moving forward. Is supporting economic growth. Again, the topic is big. So what I'm trying to say each time I kind of a little bit flash out each point is to give an essence because otherwise it sounds dry and what does it mean? So the idea is like at least some examples to picture what stands behind these very succinct words. Then the next one is industry innovation infrastructure. So it's build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. And when we say innovation, without innovation, we cannot be efficient. Innovation does not always succeed. Why? Because it can succeed in the lab, it can succeed on a small scale, but in a large scale, it's not robust enough. And there are many examples then, innovation happened, but it didn't go through. But nevertheless, some of this go through and they get themselves planted into the current industrial world and also in the past. And they made huge change in terms of what we can get access to, what we can achieve, and what we can manufacture and produce. And obviously, for those, it's a resilient infrastructure. What does it mean? Infrastructure that supports industrialization. So you have one plant, you have shops around it, you have logistics, so you have transportation companies around it, you have suppliers that basically support the operations, you have salespeople, you have marketing people who may be associated with a group or maybe not associated with a group, but they work together. So you're suddenly getting one plant, but you have a network around it, ecosystem nowadays we say around it, and that supports not just families of workers who are there, but also those associated with it. So it's a network, it's an ecosystem. And then as a result, industry innovation and infrastructure, they support everything but what it's above. It supports opportunity for education, opportunity for fulfillment, depends on the industry. For example, if it's industry of water purification, here you go, you support clean water and affordable energy and so forth. So all of this is connected, and of course it's connected to economic growth. Let's move to the next slide. Just a second. So we'll continue further. So we're now on number 10 now, and it's called reduced inequalities. What is inequality? basically lack of chance to get something, lack of chance to learn something, lack of resources, lack of materials, anything that you need and you don't have. And it can be within the country, it just happens to be that way, or among the countries. And so some countries more blessed with resources, some not, but it doesn't mean that they cannot find the way to communicate, to get agreements, and through agreements mitigate inequalities. For example, some countries have very developed workforce and they're very good on services. The others have materials and they need the services to, start to process those materials. So this exchange, this movement around, many of us are expats, they move around the globe and live in different countries, experience different cultures, and they see that, this actually, this fact itself is the opportunity to reduce inequality. Why? Because you bring knowledge, you exchange knowledge, you bring your strength, your energy, your enthusiasm to support development of whatever field of work you are in. That way, you also reduce inequality. But of course, most importantly, it's agreements between the countries about the access to resources, material resources, minerals, whatever the country needs to get, to the point when it can function and it can, create, basically fulfill the other points that we had discussed on the previous slide. Then we go with sustainable cities and communities. So make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Topic also big. What does it mean, inclusive cities? Does it mean that, it's different cultures, people from different countries live in the city? Yes. And I have many examples where I lived, like Toronto, and now I live in Dubai, and before it was Abu Dhabi. It's very inclusive and safe cities in the sense that you can be yourself, you can be who you are, and you can dwell and find work and find a place where you feel you can basically develop yourself professionally and personally. But it's much more than that. Why? Because some cities you can see that people always own the cars, fine. But what for others who don't drive, for example, for whatever reasons they don't drive, or you have children who cannot drive, but they need to move around and they're already 12 years old and they can move around by themselves. What to do? You have elderly people who probably drove in the past, but now they can't, and for whatever reason. So what to do with them? So all these questions come. So it's city mobility around the city, access to different types of transportation that allows them to be themselves, to fulfill their needs, to go about their daily life where they need to be, healthcare facility, I don't know, public like information, or like offices that they need to visit, different ministries, whatever they need to do that day, they have enough mobility to fulfill their needs. And it's very critical, how inclusive we are, meaning, are they all connected? Like, the districts, the areas, are these areas developed? It's not like, you go and basically it's so far that you get tired even by commuting back and forth. So how inclusive it becomes. This is one. Safe, of course, safety is huge topic. It's safe how you feel safe, whether, like physical safety, financial safety, anything that, you feel safe or not. And there are districts, of course, when you see like less, but there are places where you feel absolutely content and Dubai and Abu Dhabi, for example, the one of those cities that you can say you can walk around even like in the dark and there is no concern. And of course, this type of achievements, it's a lot of work that preceded that condition when you can see that you feel safe. As a woman, especially, it's always comes to mind, but it's safe. The resilience. Resilient means that you can basically address the challenge. And challenges in the city, you have a lot. So how they adapt to the challenge. For example, more traffic, you need more roads, so you need different branches for your subway or metro, how it's done and how sustainable it becomes. So about the city, you can talk a lot, but definitely there are many aspects that inclusive also would be pricing, perhaps where to live and the cost of living. It's a really big topic, and again, I just touch what I can relate to, or can basically share my perspective, but it's a very big topic. It's much more than that. But again, I'm sharing how I feel or see it, just to give you some, so it help you to picture what's behind these words. Responsible consumption and production. It's ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. It's both. It's industry aspect, how much materials they need, resources they need, how the raw materials are processed. Do you really extract everything you need from raw material, or a lot of it is wasted? And for example, Ricardo Martinez Villegas, he was talking about the TerraBio company that he started. And one of the topics he was bringing about barley, and basically, do we use all the nutrients that barley brings? And apparently, in the beer production, it's only used for starch. So what else? What else is in there is basic goes to waste. So his company provides the opportunity to look further what else can be extracted from barley before it, adds to landfill. And apparently the number is huge. It's a trillion. So realistically, again, this is just one example. Consumption can start from all of us. Do we buy too much, or do we buy enough? Enough for the week, so that nothing goes to waste. Because there is a habit, okay, let's stash a little bit more, so we have it, in case you're sick, you don't want to go out, or it's just busy, don't have time to order something. Fine. But like, what is that, brought home, so that you can physically consume, and it will not go rotten, or it will not, grow something in it that you cannot eat anymore. If I'm talking about dry food, for example, or canned food. So all these things, even like starting from each of us as a person, to, habits around home, that is a consumption. But beyond that, of course, it's industry, it's services, lots of service, for example, restaurants or, cafeterias, where you see they also have this, consumption. What for the raw materials, for them is the food ingredients. So whether they are used in a like responsible manner or not, they have their policies and so forth, but how it's managed. So all these questions and all these policies and procedures that are around that's basically translates to what in these two words says responsible consumption and production. So production is how you produce, how much waste you generate, whether you can eliminate the waste, so you can reduce the waste, and also what kind of packaging you use if you manufacture. And here, for example, in Dubai was a food, Gulf food manufacturing, and a lot of companies were present who actually do the packaging. And recently was just Gulf food in January this year, and also emphasis on the packaging was huge. And so you see a lot of packaging from paper, different versions of paper made to packaged goods, of course, filled with a layer that prevents leaking. And then you see, for example, a lot of cartoon packaging converted to the needs. And you see plastic, which is very thin plastic, and some companies emphasize that. And I hope to see them more on my channel and to talk about their procedures, because it's very important how they deal with it, so that the thin layer plastic can be reused or can be just biodegradable. So that's about this topic. Climate action, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. It's very big. And companies address it by carbon tax. As you know, in many countries already introduced. In Canada, we see it for several years now. We get tax credit for carbon credit. We have seeing it in UAE. It's coming to United Arab Emirates as well. People working. You see, a lot of effort here also, and you know, different aspects to that. It starts, I guess, from the very point of deforestation in 1713, when people noticed that deforestation has to be acted upon and replenished, at least attempt to replenish. And so, because it's limited resource, and also climate change, it starts with our actions like clean water. And, if water is polluted, it has inevitable impact on climate. Or if we have, for example, reservoirs of water suddenly in the desert, it will change climate as well. And maybe for the good, but sometimes not. So it has to be all the actions that humans have or do, whether as a collective, communities, whether it's as an industry, um, or different organization, service providers, all of this has an impact on the environment and as a result of climate change. And of course, many people say, well, here specifically, it's um, the gases that affect our atmosphere, and that's the main concern, but also the overheating of the planet. Life below water, so it's conserve and sustain use of oceans, seas, and marine resources. Yes, we could talk about fisheries here, and for example, uh, the harvesting of the seafood. Again, it's on one hand feels like a lot of resources, but on the other hand, we understand that it's limited resources because it has to be time has to be given, and action has to be made for these resources to be replenished. Otherwise, it will be exhausted to the point of elimination. And also, in terms of sustainability, also comes in mind Alina Panuria's video on the eco-pharmacovigilance, and I mentioned Alina's work many times now. But what struck me is that the um, disposal of hormones basically made all fish, one type of fish she mentions, it made them all female and they could not reproduce, and this type of fish basically disappeared. So it's really causing huge impact and impact on the oceans. But also, of course, the polluted water and the growth of the seagrass that, is ex- ejecting toxins into the water, basically killing the life around it and making this waters not possible to swim if you're talking about seashore, but also not, pushing out the population and biodiversity that happened to be there before. So this is all ruining, area. So, the topic is big again, and you can talk from different aspects on it, but just to give a sense where I see the impact and where it's all interconnected and linked. And of course, there are many places where plastic is a big issue. And plastic bottles that if you take plane, you can see on the shoreline of Pacific. And what happens after it becomes microplastic if it's depleted, and this microplastic is ruining the population of marine creatures, of biodiversity, because it's not digestible. We don't digest it, and fish or dolphins or um, any other marine animals, they just cannot process it. It becomes toxic for them. So we're going next to the life on the land. Protect, restore, promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems and biodiversity. So it's the same topics, just on the land. And again, it's a huge aspect around waste. Waste populates a lot of land areas and becomes a source of toxicity for that land. It goes into the underground waters. But even if it's like, for example, if it's in the desert, you can get a backfire from feedback from the wind. And so it's really damaging, and kind of like our action comes back to us in a way, if you feel. But beyond that, also, biodiversity is affecting animals and plants that in the area. Whether you see these plants or you don't see the living creatures, the life is everywhere. It's in the forest, in steppes, and also in the desert. And it has to be very, very, can say, concern or action put against for that to sustain the life on the land. But now moving, I think here I also want to mention one video that I saw recently, and it's the person here, you know, Arab man. He's talking to his children, and he has a little bit of sand in his hand, and he says that the sand gave us life, and we owe back to the desert to sustain it. So this is again back to this topic that whether you see the life or you don't, it exists. It exists in the desert. There is a life biodiversity that live in the desert, and managing waste is critical to maintain the land in its condition so that the next generation can enjoy it, and not to basically deplete, to prevent the depleting of the ecosystem. We're moving to another topic: peace, justice, and strong institutions. So it's promote peaceful, inclusive societies, provide access to justice, and build effective institutions. It's a big topic. It's, I guess, our creation. I mean, human creation. It's not environment per se. It's not really planet, but it's how we act, how we dwell. And on the surface, yes, it's all about the law. But in reality, it's also impacting back environment and backline. Why? For example, if you expat and you're traveling, what you basically facing? You facing, first of all, is approval for your visas. And where it comes from? Very often it comes from courts, from the Justice Department. And so having them function fast, efficient manner. So you get your visa, you can start working, you can start contributing to the organization that counts on you. That's very important. But also it reduces anxiety big time. And what you get is your mental health is more stable when you get answers fast. So having effective institutions is key for opportunities to travel, for opportunities to move around, for opportunities to promote or, bring your input to the economic growth in your country or any other countries that you happen to live and work. Beyond that, of course, it's also access to justice in disputes, and it's very big. It's accessible means the cost that makes it affordable for you to either go with legal services or with the paralegal services that can bring you to the point of mitigation, perhaps that's a little bit less stressful. I'm just saying less in France, because everything relates to the disputes always stressful. But nevertheless, it can be with mitigation resolved faster, resolved with less costs, and in a shorter timeline. If it's a legal action, of course, it takes a little longer. Sometimes takes months, sometimes takes years. But nevertheless, access means you can do, you know how to do, or if you don't, you can, be very quickly introduced, educated, and there is a community that can help to, help you to move from step by step to address your concerns or your disputes in courts. And then, of course, peaceful, meaning that, the system is robust enough, it functions well, it functions fast, so that you can fulfill your needs. You can, for example, again, I'm back to expats thinking, is get visas for yourself, for your family, so you have peace of mind, you can focus on work, you can focus on whatever, things that you do, and start living, basically. Start, be you again, and not to worry about the documents that actually mandatory to live and to do any other actions. Okay, and in terms of peaceful means that justice that supports peace. that helps to promote peace in the society, in the community, in organization, and so forth. And again, you can talk about it more. You can maybe touch on different aspects, maybe more in depth than I just did, but I just want to give my view or the feel that have for this particular topic, and to kind of give you a chance to picture it, what it means. Partnership for goals. I think that's what I mentioned right from the start, that all of these goals can be achieved only when you work together. And strengthening global partnerships to support and achieve the sustainable development goals is critical. Is this, I think back to the reducing inequality, is country to country discussions, country level discussions, agreements, actions, working together to address many of these aspects, to cooperate, because it requires lots of funds, lots of effort, both financial and physical, and collaborative understanding, like clarification of the points in order to make it work. Otherwise, by itself or say by one individual, none of these goals are achievable. However, as individuals, those starts with us. First of all, is awareness, and that's why this video is today is for awareness. It's for refresher for those who are well aware about that. Maybe to give different point of view. But again, back to baseline, it's a partnership, it's agreements, it's the work of society. And I think in the 21st century, I think even COVID times, after COVID times, it put a lot of emphasis that if you have community, you survive, you thrive, you can get support, you can work together, and then you basically move on. And again, awareness is there, but also the call for collaborative action. Next one is basically summation. Okay, we have the 17 pillars, but many of them you've seen, they can be kind of organized around environmental sustainability that focuses on natural resources and maintaining ecosystem resilience for current and future generation. The other topics are more about economic. That's a long-term economic health without compromising. That's human well-being. Also, it's economic growth, industrialization, and automation, and AI that now is basically moving fast in all areas of our life. Social sustainability here is always, legal aspects that we discussed, the justice. It's all comes together, but also again, healthy life, well-being, opportunities, quality of education, all comes to social sustainability. So bottom line is that all these three intertwined, they all connected. And, back to us, I guess, yes, for awareness, this is what it's for. Now, once we're aware, it's the call for us to act together. In whatever communities we belong, in whatever organizations we belong, that's the call to act together. I think at this point, I will stop because it's a lot of information to digest. However, on my next slides, I have more slides on this topic. We will go a little bit in more detail about environmental, economical, social, and so forth. So this would be probably the second video, just so that you don't get tired and are still motivated to watch that, okay? But thank you for watching. And personally, I would like to thank Susan Smithers. She's my neighbor in Toronto, and we know each other now almost for 11 years. And it was her kind feedback. She said that it's nice to what you do, but what about like more educational videos, more about clarification, what's about. So as I promised that that's what I will do, and here it is. Here's my first video on more clarifying the topic, and basically on one hand frameworking on the channel, but also providing more clarity, and also perhaps explaining why you see such a diverse videos there. They're all talking about sustainability from different points of view, because there are different points of view. You can see here, environmental, economical, and social. Okay? Thank you very much, dear friends, colleagues, and viewers. See you next time. And at this point, I stop. Bye for now. So long. Thank you.